1948 that we reconsidered, right?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That bill was my larger police reform bill. I recognize that some of the police things were not liked by the committee, so I have pared it down sharply. And now the only thing the bill does is adds to the prohibited category of bias profiling, which says the police can't do bias profiling on the basis of race or gender or disability. It includes sexual orientation and gender identity. That's all it does, is add those 4 words to the bias profiling. That's all it does as the substitute, which I'd ask, because it takes out all the police stuff that members of this committee did not like.
Okay, the bill only says in this, only thing it does is add sexual orientation and gender identity to the definitions of, it doesn't take anything
Prohibited
out.
bias-based profiling.
Mr. Chair,
Bias-based profiling adds those two concepts.
Mr. Chair,
Senator Deeds.
the same question Delegate Levine I asked the other day. How is a police officer, how's he supposed to know just by vision, just by what he sees, what a person's gender identity or sexual orientation is?
Mr. Chairman, I would answer the same way that things like race and gender and ethnicity are also not necessarily always clear. And that's why the definition says real or perceived. So if someone says, I'm going to get that pejorative trans person, or I'm going to get that, think of a pejorative word for someone who's gay, or I'm going to get that pejorative word for someone whose race you don't like. It doesn't matter whether the person is black or white, is gay or straight. If they perceive that someone is of this group and they act accordingly in bias, it's prohibited. And so it really doesn't matter what the actual race or ethnicity or sexual orientation of the person is. If the police officer expresses some anti-comment and then goes after them because of these characteristics.
So Mr. Chair, Delegate Levine, we're talking to prove an offense like this, you've got to be able to prove the officer said something. Is that contained in the bill?
So all the bill does is take the current definition that we already have of bias-based profiling. And all this is a definition of what bias-based profiling is. And what the code section says, and it was added in 2020, it says, for purposes of this chapter, unless the context requires a different meaning, bias-based profiling means actions of a law enforcement officer that are based solely on the real or perceived race, ethnicity, age, gender, it would add sexual orientation, gender identity, or any combination thereof, or other non-criminal characteristics of an individual, except when they're used to match a specific description. So this is actually just definitional. We already have it in our code. And basically we use it in other places of the code to say this is prohibited conduct. It's not a criminal activity. It's not a criminal offense. It's just a way to say, police, you cannot act against someone because of their race. You cannot act against someone because of their gender. And I'm adding, you cannot act against someone because of their real or perceived sexual orientation or gender identity.
Okay, is there a motion to adopt the substitute, which is what this is?
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Sasslaw moves to adopt the substitute. Yes, John?
First, you have to reconsider the amendments that were adopted at the last meeting.
Did we adopt the amendments last time? Okay. Is there a motion to reconsider the amendments that were adopted last time? Senator Sasslaw moves to reconsider the amendments last time. Senator Deeds seconded. All in favor of the motion to reconsider the amendments that we adopted last time?
The hell is perceived sexual invasion?
Senator Norman, did you wish to vote on reconsider? No. Ayes 13, no 0.
Okay, it's now been reconsidered, and there's a motion now to adopt an amendment in the nature of a substitute to House Bill 1948. Is there a motion?
Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, just a minute. Senator Sasslaw makes the motion. Senator Deeds.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman.
Just a minute.
If I'm voting on something, it's got to be released online to the public.
I know. That's what we're doing now. Okay. The motion, that is to present the substitute, I guess. Go ahead, Senator McDougall.
Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead.
I'm trying to pull it up on LIS.
Okay, yeah.
I see nothing.
Okay.
So it's not in the committee area. It's not in the public area.
Senate committee amendments, under the amendments.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, it should be available on LIS.
Yeah, make sure everybody has a copy of it.
Mr. Chairman, while we're pulling it up on him.
Yeah. Senator Norman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If someone could we're getting into a realm where there are no problems, I think, determining ethnicity, but can somebody explain to me what perceived sexual invasion is?
Sexual
I have to
orientation,
respond,
gender
Mr.
identity.
Chairman.
Go ahead, Delegate Levine.
So just as someone can perceive a driver as African American when they're not African American, and take actions that they would take against African Americans, against that driver who doesn't have to be black at all. Maybe they're Hispanic. Someone could see.
Mr. Chairman, I don't care about ethnicity. I
Okay.
got it. My
Okay.
question was very narrow. What is perceived sexual invasion?
Sexual orientation is the word. And if two men are walking in the street arm in arm, one might perceive that they're gay.
It says sexual orientation or gender identity, those two words, those four words.
So someone, if they see two men kissing or two women kissing, one may perceive them to be gay.
Okay, everybody got the amendment in the nature of a substitute? It's been offered. Are you ready to vote? Did everybody have it? Does everybody have the amendment in the nature of a substitute? It's one line. Does anybody not have it? Okay. Senator Southlaw moves to adopt the substitute. And
Mr.
there's a
Chairman.
second, yes, go ahead. Who's next?
Durville.
Cyril, go ahead.
I'm just trying to understand what the bill does now. Well, first of all, can the delegate tell us whether or not he intends to put this bill in conference if this passes?
No, I will simply pass. I will accept this amendment. This,
Thank, Mr. Chairman. Second
I
question.
understand there were problems.
Second question, go ahead.
I'm trying to understand what the bill now does. I think I haven't pulled up the entire code yet, but I believe this is an amendment to the Community Policing Act, which was the bill Delegate Torian passed
That's
last
correct.
year. Is that right?
That's correct. So if you look at 52.30.2, it says no state police officer shall engage in bias-based profiling in the performance of his official duties.
Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, Senator Searle.
Okay, so my understanding on that act is I don't believe, if maybe Delegate Levine or council could correct me, but I don't believe that act has any like consequences to it except for the fact that localities are required to record different the race, ethnicity, age, gender, whatever of the people they stop and have interactions with and produce reports of that. Is there some other consequence this creates besides enhancing the reporting requirements for local law enforcement agencies?
There's not, Mr. Chairman, Delegate Senator Servo. In fact, it doesn't even require the reporting because I didn't change that part of the bill. It's simply a statement that it's illegal so that we can teach our state police that it is illegal, that it is against the code to do this, but there are no consequences for it.
Okay. All right, any other questions?
I got one question.
Yeah, Senator Morsi.
Delegate, if an officer engaged in bias-based profiling and as a result of that uncovered evidence, indicia of a crime, contraband, guns, etc., would that violation of the bias-based profiling prohibit that evidence from those items recovered from coming into evidence at a criminal trial?
Senator Marcy, that's a really good question. I guess we could ask counsel. If someone goes after someone because they're black and stops the car just because they're black and finds contraband, can that contraband be used in a trial? I don't know, but that's what the current law.
Mr. Chair.
Well, I can already tell you for 20 years, 30 years, we've decided and courts have ruled that if a police officer stops an individual only because of their race and then they do that, that is profiling and that evidence would be suppressed. But go
I
ahead,
would
Steve.
suggest it would be the
Charles, do you
same
want to
thing.
address that? My question went a little bit deeper, but sure.
Mr.
Charles? Charles?
The only time that evidence can be suppressed is if it is, number one, a violation. Well, number one is if the General Assembly says that it cannot be admitted because of a particular violation, and that has to be expressed. Or if it's a violation of the Fourth Amendment and on balance, the deterrent value of suppressing overweighs the harm of suppressing otherwise reliable evidence.
A follow-up question, Mr. Chair.
Senator Morsi, go ahead.
Steve, you remember a number of years ago, cars coming up from Florida with Z license plates, which indicated a rental vehicle, and the individual was African American, and they were stopped on a rental car coming up from Florida, and they were black, and they recovered, cocaine in that car. Defense attorneys would challenge it based on a violation of the Fourth, an unreasonable search and seizure, which was the nexus, which was based upon that profiling, that racial profiling. And if the judge ruled yes, it was racial profiling, the evidence didn't come in. Isn't this an extension of that? Isn't this legislation an extension of that?
Steve? Steve?
I don't recall cases being suppressed because of a successful racial profiling argument. Because in any instance, the question is whether the officer had an objective reason to believe that a crime or a traffic infraction was being committed. The problem, Mr. Chairman, as Senator Morrissey points out, is that we in the criminal justice community have always known that narcotics officers in plain cars don't stop for tag violations or driving 59 miles an hour in a 55. They stop because of what Senator Morrissey refers to as racial profiling. The General Assembly has addressed this with legislation that was enacted in the last special session, providing that evidence discovered as a result of equipment violations or the odor of marijuana is not admissible. So the problem is real. I don't know that this bill has anything.
Mr. Chair,
Just let's see Steve finish up. Go ahead.
I don't think it's relevant to the
Steve,
bill.
well, let him finish. Steve?
I'm finished.
Go ahead, okay, yeah,
Mr. Chair.
Peterson, yes.
This bill, or the original statute, was to address an issue of racial profiling, specifically the issue of driving while black, okay? And that was an issue that we knew we had. I'm not aware of an issue of driving while gay. I'm really not, and I'm not being facetious. I'm not being facetious.
Go ahead, okay.
We're talking about people that were pulled over based upon characteristics that were observable from a distance. This is a different issue, and I realize Delegate Levine's fighting hard to save his bill. I appreciate that, but we're diluting what is an issue, what is a material issue, with what frankly is not a material issue. And I think this bill's a bridge too far, and I would move to PBI.
May I respond, Mr.
Just a
Chairman?
minute, Delegate Levine, finish up, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This profiling against gay and trans people has been going on for hundreds of years. The Stonewall Rebellion in 1969 happened because Black transgender people were being persecuted and prosecuted by police merely for being trans. That's how a whole movement began. Some 20% of transgender people are stopped. And they're stopped. I'll tell you why they're stopped, particularly transgender people of color. The police harass them, and then they look in their purse. And if they find a condom, they're charged with being sex workers. This is a tremendous problem. And I'd be happy to give all kinds of studies, peer-reviewed studies, that frankly, more often than Black people are profiled, Black transgender people are the highest profiled people in the United States of America. 20% have been stopped by police for no crime whatsoever. This is a tremendous problem.
Is there ready for a motion? I think we're ready for a motion. I think everybody understands it. I didn't hear. Is there a motion? The motion, okay, to pass the bill by indefinitely. Senator Peake and Senator Peterson, is that right? Peterson and Senator Peake. Listen, use your microphone so I can actually hear you. All right, Senator Peterson moves to pass the bill by indefinitely. Senator Peake seconds the motion. All right, are you ready to vote? All in favor of the motion to pass the bill by indefinitely. Vote aye if you like it, or again, no if you don't. If you disagree.
Aye 7, no 6.
7 to 6 and 0. 7, 6, and 0. So the bill is being passed by indefinitely by vote of 7 to 6. Okay? All right. Okay. Okay. Thank you, Delegate Levine.